Hello, everybody. This is a Lamley showcase. I don't know if it's a showcase, but who cares? Ferrari is back. Hot Wheels just announced this morning that they have acquired or secured the Ferrari license once again. The long nightmare is over. Ha ha ha. I am very, very excited about this. I know many of you are as well, to finally see Ferrari back. It's Monday. I typically take some time off at the beginning of the week from doing Lamley stuff. I definitely wanted to take time off this week because I'm still resting this poor voice after having a cold. But this news merits some discussion because it is significant. And whether or not you have, whatever your opinion about Hot Wheels, and if you're watching this channel and you're watching this video, you definitely have an opinion about Hot Wheels, good or bad, or mixed, or whatever. I think we can all acknowledge this is a significant moment because a lot has changed since we last saw, and this might have been the last one, Ferrari with Hot Wheels. In a lot of ways. Number one, well, the license went elsewhere, and we saw some licensing and sub-licensing, and we've seen Tomica Limited Vintage put out some amazing stuff. BBR put out some really, really cool stuff. Tarmac Works has some stuff. I mean, we've seen Ferrari kind of, some neat little things crop up here and there. But as great as some of that stuff is, those are still somewhat niche collector brands, right? And I love them. I think that's pretty clear how much I love them. But when you look from the overall scope of things, Hot Wheels not having Ferrari is a big deal. I maintain that Hot Wheels needs Ferrari as much as Ferrari needs Hot Wheels, and Ferrari might need Hot Wheels even more. Because when you think about the car culture world and what we aspired as kids, when you think about, the collector world is one thing. Those of us who can, acquire TLVs or BBRs or whatever, Tomicas, we had some access to Ferraris. But Hot Wheels is still the premier, the significant, the signature brand in this stuff, from collector to toy. And when we're trying to replicate car culture and Hot Wheels is trying to replicate car culture for today's fan and tomorrow's fan, they need to have Ferrari. It's as iconic as Porsche. It's as iconic as like Mustang. There's massive brands, but in terms of while there's bigger brands, of course, Ferrari is as iconic as any when it comes to cars. And Hot Wheels will always have a little gap if they don't have Ferrari, probably more so than any other brand. There was a period of time when they didn't have Porsche or BMW or Mercedes, and those were all significant. But I would argue that Ferrari is even more significant than that. That's one big change, is just to see it come back. Number two, and the landscape of the collector world, the toy world with Tomicas and Matchbox and things, Majorette, it hasn't changed much as far as they've been aiming at collectors and things. That's changed. And so we have a lot of great options with Ferrari. So those who are into those premium brands might say, it's fine. We'll see what they do. I understand that, but the significance of this. The other thing is how much Hot Wheels has changed. And they've changed quite a bit in the last 10 or 11 years. And when you think about it, when Ferrari went away in 2014, 2013, car culture had not yet been developed. They were doing premium, but premium was kind of hit and miss. Boulevard came and went, Garage came and went, but car culture has been running strong since 2016, and it's been it's run alongside car culture so much that, there would have been obviously Ferraris and mixes. I would assume there would even be Ferrari mixes in and of themselves. And so as Hot Wheels has found its voice in premium and collector, over the last 10 or 11 years, it's been interesting that Ferrari has not been part of that. So as Ferrari comes back, it's going to be very cool to see how this all fits in. It might just be totally smooth. We might have things we love, things we don't. I mean, that's obviously going to happen. But I don't think we've seen exactly how far this can go, and I think it's very, very exciting. We are going to be inundated with Ferraris in the coming months. People have asked. I've got a lot of questions today. Did you know? Yes, I did. But I don't know much more than that. I just knew what was coming. Obviously, I was sworn to secrecy, and I have signed documents that I have an NDA. I couldn't have said anything if I wanted to. But yeah, it was quite secret. And who cares about what I know? Because ultimately, I'm going to discover what's coming. All I know is it's going to come in basic, premium, ultra premium. That would be like RLC or Elite 6.4. I don't know specifics, what's coming. I have been told that some castings will make their return. So that's some of these that we're looking at. I don't know exactly what those are. All I know is that it's going to be exciting. We're going to see a ton of new castings. We're going to see some return. But the thing that I think is interesting, and we'll go through this in a little bit, is that there's a lot of castings that I hope don't return or at least get modified. Most especially this little thing right here. The Ferrari F40, the Hot Wheels Ferrari F40 is an unmitigated disaster. It's from a different time, of course. And, it had an opening part. Some people think that's cool. But even then, look at the big gaps and everything else. I think the F40 is one of the most iconic Ferraris, and it just deserves better treatment, right? It deserves the advances in technology. It deserves the designers we have today that come with such just such thorough backgrounds that between, Ron and Craig and Brian, we need these designers to take on these castings. And I know they've already been taking on a lot of them. I wouldn't be surprised to see like the F40 be one of the first things they take on. Like I said, I don't know specifics. But so it's when I say there's going to be new castings and then some that return, there's specific ones that I'd like to see return. There's others that let them get lost into history and let us kind of enjoy collecting these old castings, these nostalgic and retro castings. I pulled out my 10 favorite Ferraris, and we'll go through those real quickly as we talk a little bit about the history. Ferrari was so synonymous with Hot Wheels for so long, through the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and then obviously the 2010s. We got 5-packs every year. But it was still predominant basic, right? And there was, we had some premiums like these GTOs and things, but never the way it could have gone with car culture. So let's talk through some of these. My Ferrari collection spans two things. I keep my collection of loose cars that are not car culture or other particular lines by brand. So this is Ferrari, and I try and organize them not by release of casting, but like older cars versus newer cars, if that makes sense. So this would be the beginning of my Ferrari collection. I also keep the Ferrari racers and speed machines separate. I keep premium or car culture, like I said, but there's no car culture. And then Super Treasure Hunt separate. So we'll get into some of that in a little bit. But you can see that there's some gaps, and I will fill those because these are the cars that I would add as some of my favorites from top 10. What will be interesting is we could revisit this and see as I add these top 10 models, what it's going to be in a year or 2 years. So the first one, these are not in order, and you're going to see a lack of red. You're going to see some red, but not as much red as you'd think. This is the Ferrari 250 GTO Classic. The actual Ferrari is a 250 or 250 is like a 10 or 20, $25 million car. Hot Wheels did this one. They did it for basic, then moved it to premium in garage, I think. And that we were able, before they lost the license and really leaned into garage, we were at least able to see two, the red and the gray. I think the gray was part of like a box set. We were able to see this one move to premium. I like the gray even more so than the red. There are some things missing here. Like I wish the taillights were done. Some taillights got done on basics. See? But yeah, that was a casting I really liked. I really thought about putting the California in there from Ferris Bueller, but I, decided not to. Hard to pick 10. And it's going to be even harder as this new stuff comes out. That's another thing. We're going to see current Ferraris, and we will see more classics as well. And I mean, you can start getting really excited about when you start thinking about some of the cars that we haven't seen from Ferrari outside of just the old stuff. Another one. I think I've talked about this car as one of my favorite for so long. Thought about this casting. Love the GTO casting. I do wonder if we could get a version of a GTO without the super large wheels in the back, because this seems to be kind of a throwback to, a different era. We saw the 308 get the same size wheels, and I wonder if we could get a GTO type, although I still like the GTO with the rake, and this is still my favorite. I love these premiums, but I still love the 5-pack in pearl white. It remains one of my favorite favorite Ferraris, just because I love the pearl white color, and this thing got full detail. Taillights, front, I mean, headlights not necessarily, but obviously the front emblem and the side emblems. And for a 5-pack car, that's really good. And no dumb stripe anywhere, just nice and clean. So that's always been a favorite. So that's the first portion of my collection. I can move this back. And as we go around to the other side, they just all happen to fit in the same case. That's going to change in a big way, obviously. Only one gap among these. These are the most recent Ferraris, actually. I think, you know, like, because this is, yeah, I mean, there's some gaps here, but if you look back, these were all done in the, you know, up until 2014 when the license was lost. These were all done in the last, what would be, maybe like 2006 on. So some premiums. You'll see some of these castings in my Ferrari Racers collection. The 458. This is what we got as we got to the end. This one was from like 2004. This black one, but like the 458, then the Spider, the FF 599XX in basic. We got a couple of basics, obviously, with their accompanying super treasure hunts. We'll get to that in a little bit. 612, and then the La Ferrari was the final casting. We was around long enough for us to get one Zamac. I think one of these was a store. Well, no, maybe not. Anyway, La Ferrari was the last they did. This as a first edition, and then they were killed. It's not a great casting, but I do have one gap there, right next to the Ferrari FF, which actually happens to be the Ferrari FF. I have two red ones. There was another issue of the Ferrari FF. I just kept the first editions, but I have two red ones. That bright red one, this darker red one, but this is the one, as I've talked about in the past. This is the one with the prancing horse emblem on the very front. They actually removed it, maybe because it was it looked somewhat blobbish. You know, and so they cleaned it up. I would assume that was at Ferrari's request. But I've always liked the FF. I like the car. Some Ferrari fans don't. I like the casting a lot. I think it's a really nicely realistic casting. And if you look at these, I would love to see all of these castings return. I mean, they might be done differently with the large size wheels in the back and everything. The LaFerrari is kind of disastrous in my opinion, but the 612 is pretty clean. The 599XX will be well represented in my favorites. The FF, I think all of these I would love to see back. Some of these, like this, the 458 was supposed to be in Speed Machines, but Speed Machines was canned before the 458 came out. I wonder if something like that could return. I mean, there's just a lot of exciting possibilities. So those are the most recent. So let's close this up. By the way, another one I considered for my top 10, that one, but it'll show up differently, as you probably can figure out. And then, of course, this Italian color one, I always thought was really cool too from Basic. All right, let's remove that. How about we go with my Ferrari Racers. I just recently did a video on Ferrari Racers, so I don't have to spend a lot of time here. And you can go back to that video because I think I just put it out not too long ago, where I opened up a bunch that I bought in Brazil. People had asked if this Ferrari Racers video was a hint towards what was coming. I wish I was that clever. I had just bought some over the summer in Brazil and wanted to open them because I really wanted them in the collection. So that was what that was about. Did I know at that point? Yeah, I may have. But that doesn't matter. I thought about these three because I just love this 250. And I think the Ferrari Racers version is one of the coolest. And I just love it when it's done in these kind of classic racing liveries. 365 is good. I'm not real keen on the 512, but I was happy to have it. There's the disastrous F40, even though the decos on those are pretty good on all three of those. F50, that's another casting that it's just too small. I would love to see that get redone. Both of these, if they could redo these, how great would that be? You know, some of these, and then we got, there's the GTO, but this one had, the wheels are too thin on that. Again, you're going to see the GTO. And then here is the 308 GTS. And looks so cool with the cold wheels, but there's a gap next to it. So out of my top 10, again, I said we might stay away from some of the red. I have to add this beauty in maroon with these kind of gold colored rims. I always thought this was a really, really cool Ferrari racer. And I think this casting was developed for Ferrari racers. So that one is in my top 10 as well. But here are the castings. This would be my point, because these are castings I would not collect in any way, shape, or form, but I have them as part of my Ferrari racers. So most importantly, redo the F40 and F50. Just redo them. These, I don't care if you redo these castings or if you bring them back, but just don't bring back these. They've been passed by. They're too old. They're too out of proportion. They're too rough. They look okay, but the decals on these are okay, but they just don't match. They just don't match what true Ferrari, or what Hot Wheels can do now. They just don't live up to what Hot Wheels can do now, casting wise. But here's one that I really like, and even with its cool metal chassis and everything else, this is the Ferrari 456M. Not a well-loved Ferrari in real life, but I really like the casting. It's one that I would be happy to see return. And as a matter of fact, out of my top 10, this one, because of its amazing deco with this white nose and the red body, and then the racing decals on the side. I love this version from Ferrari Racers. Such a clean deco too. None of this pixelated stuff. It's just really, really well done. I had to put this one just from execution into my top 10. All right, let's keep on going. Let's go see the other side of these Ferraris. I would love to see your comments down below of like, what do you want to see? I mean, obviously, I think all is on the table at this point. Things I don't think we'll see just because of complicated licensing, like that Liberty Walk F40. From what I understand, Ferrari didn't recognize that as a Ferrari once it was modified that way. So I would think that Hot Wheels, this is again my own opinion, I would think that Hot Wheels couldn't do that and get Ferrari's approval on it, right? Which they would want to do. These are the final Ferrari racers that I have. Again, some nice castings, really nice castings. That's one I considered for my top 10. And then, some okay. This is a little scrunched. Great deco, but a little scrunched. This is a fabulous casting of a very much unliked Ferrari. I considered putting that one in my top 10. Enzo, the gold Enzo is pretty sweet. There's a gap. This casting I don't like. This one I really like. And there's a bunch of stickers. But there's a gap right there. So what goes in there? Well, if you guessed Enzo, I have 3 Ferrari Racer Enzos. And the gold is cool and that road one is pretty sweet. But I have always loved this black with gold striping Ferrari Enzo, and I just thought the wheels, between the wheels and the black and the stripe, that's always been one of my favorite Ferraris, and so that one goes into my top 10. I would have to think the Enzo comes back. It was one of the more later iconic Ferraris that Hot Wheels did. I think the 599XX, even though the 599XX may not be as significant in Ferrari lore, but for collectors, I think it is, and so that one definitely goes in there. The Enzo for sure. With Enzo, real life Hot Wheels doesn't matter, is an iconic Ferrari, and I hope that this casting, I'm fine with it coming back this way, looking exactly how it is, just as long as it comes back. Maybe it doesn't need to. I don't know. It was already done as a super, and maybe not. I don't know. Anyway, all right. Next portion. Let's get this one closed. I think all I have left, is what's in the Speed Machine. So I think this case I have is it's older, so it's a little, you see how kind of grimy that is. That's just the way it goes. All right, so here we go. These aren't Ferraris, but this is where the Ferraris sit in my Speed Machines. I don't have all of the Speed Machine Ferraris. This is from the Speed Machines of 2010, 2011. I know there's a blue version of this California. There might be a couple other colors of this one. I'm not totally sure. I do have all the 599XXs, which 2 are missing, so we'll get to that. And I think there's this one. There might be a couple of others that I'm not thinking of. This one's actually a kind of a cool color and wheel combination, but the casting is kind of terrible. What casting is this? Oh, the 550 Maranello. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. But there's 3 gaps. Let's talk about this one. So I mentioned a casting of a car that is not totally loved in the Ferrari world. but the 612 Scaglietti is kind of cool. And I think it's a great Hot Wheels car. I could have picked the gray one from Ferrari Racers, or I could have picked this yellow one from Speed Machines. I went ahead with the yellow one. I like the cold mold wheels on this one. We've seen it in a couple of 5-packs as well. That's been it for this casting. I do hope it comes back and finds its way into, I don't know, a Ferrari diorama set or a Ferrari car culture set, even basic for that matter. But that's a casting that, you know, no one's going to do. Hot Wheels will never do a unloved Ferrari set, but mix those in occasionally because I think that they have their place, and I've always liked that casting. All right, I think you already figured out which two are missing here. There were 4. The 599XX was made for Speed Machines, and then eventually made itself into the main line a couple times. And we'll talk about that last. But yeah, there were 4 versions made for Speed Machines. All of them are nice, the yellow and the black. But this one is actually based on the Nürburgring number 3 test car, right? I think this was a test car, and it's phenomenal. It's just a beautiful replica as a Hot Wheels, as a die-cast. It's done Hot Wheels, you know, with the bigger wheels and the smaller. I mean, obviously the real 599X has larger wheels in the back, but maybe not obviously at this proportion. But all the little details, like on the windshield and everything else, I mean, these are really, really cool. And between the wheels and the co-molds, which I just still think the co-mold wheels look as good as anything on a Hot Wheels. I mean, they're one of the best Hot Wheels wheels they've ever done. I know they have now the premium that they've done for car culture. By the way, Speed Machines Ferrari set. Holy cow, I'm all for it. So that was one. Yellow, then they did the black. And then as Speed Machines was basically heading towards its demise, right? It was not performing. And I know people today, collectors today, do not believe, but I promise you, these castings, these Speed Machines models, they hung and hung and hung on the pegs. People were not buying it. There's a couple cars that they bought. I think the Bugatti, a couple others, but man, some of these hung forever. That Audi TT, my goodness, you couldn't sell it. You couldn't pay people to buy them. Now you can. But it just was not performing well, and Mattel killed it. But there were a couple of mixes that were released. There were a couple of mixes that were just plain canceled. And then there were a couple mixes that were released, really not in the States, just in some overseas markets. And some of them included this amazing Zamac 599XX. I have said this before. I will say it now. And my opinion has not changed. This is one of my all-time favorite Hot Wheels, period. And one day I'll do a list of just specific, not castings, just specific releases. And I promise this will be in there. There's a couple reasons why. One is it just really shows off the awesome casting. The lines on this are so well done. I don't know who designed it, but they did such a great job on this. That's number one. Number two, the Zamac styling, and then the crispness of these tampos. It's just so phenomenal. And then the fact that they did the gray coal mold, so it's just nothing is overstated, and it's just super clean. I mean, it's just an amazing model, just so beautifully executed. And I would say that it's either this one or the next one I'm going to show you is my favorite Ferrari in my collection. And we'll see if anything released in the coming months and years will surpass that. Something might, but at this point I don't see what it would be. All right, I'll just leave this here, and I will tell you that the last one, I've already shown you 9 in my top 10. I can say without a doubt, I don't know how numbers 3 through 10 will go, but numbers 1 and 2 are very much set in stone, although I would alternate between those two. It's either the Zamac Ferrari 599XX or the Super Treasure Hunt 599XX, another one that is just so phenomenal, so beautifully executed. Look how clean the lines are in this one. Inspector Flame Red, great use of the Star 5 spokes, which definitely are based on Ferrari wheels, whether it's official or not. And this model is just so beautiful. Super Treasure Hunt or not, it's just an absolute stunner of a model, and one of my, well, obviously it's up there as one of my all-time favorite Ferraris. And while this one could break my top 10 for all-time Hot Wheels. This one will, just because of the execution, but when it comes to just Ferrari, these two will alternate between 1 and 2. The 599XX, like I said, in the history of the Ferraris may not be the most significant. It's pretty significant, but, you know, compared to some others. But in the Hot Wheels world, we were in love with this casting, just in love with it. What's interesting is, as I showed at the beginning, they released this as a Super Treasure Hunt 2 years in a row. This was the first one. This is the exact one I found in a Walmart, a rural Walmart. I'll even tell you where it was. It was not Moroni. What was it called? Not Manti. So I was going to tell you what it was. Mount Pleasant. Ephraim, Utah. I don't even go there anymore. And I happened to drive through and I found this on the pegs, this Super Treasure, and I've kept this exact one. And then the next year, that was in 2000, what was it? 2012. And then right after that, in 2013, right? Yeah, 2013, they released it as a Super Treasure Hunt again. And in my opinion, it's not even close. This Super Treasure Hunt is okay, but even the basic is better than that Super. This one is phenomenal. So anyway, well, we started with these two in the shot. We'll end with it. I am very excited about what's coming. I promise you, I will have some good content for you when it comes to Ferrari. I can't promise that I will have very first images because I won't leak anything, and I know there's people who will, who try and get things that are leaked out of the factory. I don't play that game. But what I can promise you is that as the Ferrari news comes out, I will have access to people that will be able to give me good information that I will definitely pass on to you as soon as I have it. Good details about what they're developing and how certain cars came to be. And who knows, maybe I'll get some interviews with some people to talk about this process of getting Ferrari back with Hot Wheels. I think that would be pretty sweet. You guys tell me what you think. You excited? I am. And I cannot wait to see what comes in the coming months with Ferrari. And I am looking forward to sharing some cool information with you as we go. Thanks, everybody. Now back to resting this voice. Bye.